Welcome, bienvenidos. We are thrilled to bring you the second Sonus International Music Festival, from the heartland to the concert hall. Last year, we created the Sonus Festival inspired by beloved Argentine composer Carlos Guastavino to introduce his beautiful music to a wider audience and to gather together exceptional artists from around the world to bring you music rooted in the heart of folk traditions from all corners of the Americas.
This year, we're digging deeper, bringing you some of Guastavino's lesser-known works, as well as some of his best-known pieces. We also have an exciting tango program to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the birth of Astor Piazzolla, who was able to express through his music the longing and hope of so many immigrants arriving in a new world.
The music of Guastavino and Piazzolla carries through it influences from many countries and very old traditions. When we look back, we realize our debt to those who came before us, their sacrifices, their resolve to leave their homeland to find a better future. We imagine their trepidation and their sadness, as well as the sense of adventure and excitement they must have felt as they bravely crossed oceans and forged new roads and new lives in a foreign land.
The pieces you'll hear performed by our 2021 artists are woven from the threads of a wide range of folk traditions. We share this music to bring us together, to connect us through our differences, knowing that nothing is more powerful than music to reach and move hearts and minds. When we envisioned this year's program, we wanted to create a vehicle through which new works celebrating our individual cultural uniqueness and differences could be brought to life. Enter the Carlos Guastavino Composition Competition. We invited composers from all over the world to delve into their own traditions and stories. You will be the first to hear the 5 finalists of the competition, sprinkled throughout the festival programs. The winner will be announced on our final night.
This festival would not be possible without the extreme generosity and vision of musicians, composers, and presenters who have given from their hearts to share their talents and expertise. We are endlessly grateful to them, and we can't wait for you to hear their performances. Thank you for your contributions and for joining us from home. Now, enjoy this celebration of the creative spirit of those who came before us and those who will continue the mission of spreading beauty and goodwill in years to come.
Las canciones argentinas son canciones que Guastavino recogió de viaje, de distintas regiones de la Argentina. Lo cierto es que muchas de estas canciones se han hecho muy conocidas, sobre todo en los surcos del amor, que hay arreglos para coro también de Guastavino. Sí. Ha tomado estas canciones que son populares, la primera un carnavalito, la segunda bailecito, la tercera una samba, la última de nuevo un carnavalito. Y utiliza un poco el color del pentatónico en la música norteña, y después una armonía más tradicional en las otras canciones, más criollas, ¿no?, del centro de la Argentina. Sin embargo, aparecen colores en los acordes muy atrevidos y de un ingenio espectacular en la composición. Los acompañamientos del piano son bastante difíciles y llenos, y que tienen una escritura pianística bien llena y densa.
Las canciones argentinas son un ciclo que yo nunca canté porque siempre me pareció que se amoldaban mejor a la octava superior, a las voces de mujer. Porque son, como dijo el Fernando, son muy densas, y yo soy un cantante que me gusta retosar sobre el colchón blandito, yo nunca fui un cantante aguerrido, así de... Entonces les tengo mucho respeto y no sé, es como otra fase en donde se palpita, se siente el pálpito joven, la ampulosidad, no grandilocuente ni arrogante, nunca arrogante, pero todo como una cuestión hasta de un ostinato así medio maquinal, aún en las cosas sutiles, como en los surcos del amor, hay un contrapunto así como bien efervescente, no es un ciclo que huele así como con una puerta, es como un ritmo así medio de la tierra.
Desde que te conocí, te hiciste dueña de mí. Yo no te ofrezco riquezas, vida y solo el amor que te di. Desde que te conocí, te hiciste dueña de mí. Yo no te ofrezco riquezas, vida y solo el amor que te di. El amor con el amor, el desdén con el desdén, y la ingratitud separa y con ingratitud también. Cuando nada te debía, toda el alma me dabaste, y recuerda que dejaste la dura de la Magia, y hasta otro día, que consuelo puedo darte.
This year, Sonus launched the first Carlos Guastavino International Composition Competition. The goal of the competition was to encourage the creation of musical works inspired by folk and national traditions. We were extremely pleased by the level of response. We received several entries of the highest quality from countries like Serbia, Italy, Latvia, Mexico, Colombia, Costa Rica, Israel, Palestine, Turkey, Ghana, Venezuela, Argentina, Brazil, the United States, and others. These entries were judged by 14 judges in an anonymous manner. These judges included well-established composers as well as performers. It is so rewarding to see these composers draw inspiration from their national traditions to write this beautiful music.
During the festival, we will introduce you to the 5 finalists of the Carlos Guastavino Composition Competition. Their compositions are presented not by rank, but to reflect each program's thematic. You will meet each composer describing their works, followed by a performance of their composition. Our first finalist hails from Mexico. This is Israel Ruiz Ayala with Ts'unu'un.
Hola, mi obra está inspirada en la cultura maya y por los pasos de mi bisabuelo Daniel Ayala Pérez, quien dedicó su vida y música a esta cultura al ser un maya desde la raíz. Ts'unu'un, que significa colibrí en maya, considerado protector de los guerreros, mensajero entre dioses y humanos, era signo de buen augurio y símbolo de libertad. En la actualidad, el pueblo considera de buena suerte que el colibrí venga a anidar dentro de su propiedad porque llegarán las bendiciones. La flauta representa a la diminuta ave nacida de un bello jade, tallado por los dioses con el fin de ser el mensajero de los pensamientos más bellos y puros. El piano, por su parte, representa la humanidad, lo terrenal, el mar y la oscuridad que atraviesa el colibrí en una constante danza que los lleva por una aventura en la cual el colibrí, con la inmensa agilidad que posee, se mantiene suspendido por sus veloces alas en un aparente infinito. Espero disfruten escuchando esta obra tanto como yo creándola. Gracias.
Our next finalist comes to us from Israel. This is Bracha Bdil with Shofar.
שלום, אני ברכה בדיל, מלחינה ישראלית, ילידת 1988. השופר הוא כלי תרועה, מין קרן מקראית, הסמל היהודי של ראש השנה, שהוא היום הראשון של לוח השנה היהודי. על פי היהדות, זהו יום קדוש בו בורא העולם שופט את כל בני האדם על מעשיהם בעבר, וקובע את עתידם לטוב או לרע. היצירה שופר, לפסנתר סולו, שואפת להציג את הפסנתר ברוח מדיטטיבית, ועם זאת אקספרסיבית, בדומה לשירה מונודית מודלית רציטטיבית עתיקה. בחטיבה האמצעית מופיעה טוקטה יודאיקה, שמפתחת את החטיבה שקדמה ומציגה את החומרים באופן ריתמי. בחטיבה זו ניתן לשמוע ציטוטים מהשיר פונר, שקט שקט, שטילר שטילר, שהפך לאחד מסמלי שואת העם היהודי. הטוקטה מתמזגת עם החטיבה המדיטטיבית שמופיעה לאחריה, ונחתמת בתקיעות השופר.
one of the reasons why I was excited to dive into Guastavino is because I have been studying Ladino music for most of my career. And I'm always looking in the vaults and like listening to new composers who come my way and investigating new poems and trying to find who set them to tell different kinds of stories on the stage. And one of the things I find interesting is that in World War II, there was a huge population of Jews that were fleeing Europe, and they went to Argentina. And I know that there's music in that diaspora. And so anytime I have an opportunity to sort of dive in, there's always a tale of something that goes to another composer or to Guastavino himself, or a poem from a poet that they were friends with in a cafe. And there's always something to find. And it often takes a while, but it is well worth the digging. So I was inspired to go traveling with Guastavino down those little scholarly wormholes. So what brought me to Spanish language music? It's a sort of roundabout tale. As a young person, when I started to sing, I did my first big concert, and my mom went to the choral master and said, "Why does my daughter have to sing under a gigantic cross?" We were a Jewish family, and my mother just didn't understand why this was so. And my teacher told her to get used to it. The vocal tradition, as we teach it in Western society, is very Christian and white and European, right? So in all this time of DEI, we're talking about like, how do we teach Western music when we're not going to teach it from a white European male perspective, because that's what we have. That's what we teach. That's what we give our students. You study Bach, it's all church music. You study Mozart, he did a lot of church music, but worked for the royalty. So there's not a whole lot of way-ins for people who don't identify in that way. So even as a young kid, and I didn't have the language for this at the time, but I felt like I was studying something that didn't necessarily belong to me, even though music belongs to everyone. And music is an international language. It's a human language. Even animals can hear, appreciate, and make their own music. So when I found Ladino music, it just spoke to me. I heard it first in synagogue, and it spoke to me like nothing else ever has. If you go back in my own personal lineage, my family came to this country fleeing persecution in Europe. We go back in history to try to find out who we are. My dad was adopted. My, other family was running from the pogroms in Europe. We don't know exactly where they came from, but that music spoke to me and lit me up. And then I went to the Peabody Conservatory, where I met Nancy, although it was a long time ago. Anyway. And there I studied early music because I've always been fascinated by the origins, like that really just bare bones. When singing was first starting to be notated, the Hildegard von Bingen type of stuff. And our early music professors brought our early music ensemble these Ladino songs. And for some reason, it hadn't connected in my brain until that moment that they were real, they were valid, they were of musical importance. I thought they were just this little thing from a little niche of the world that I came from. But then they brought it into this scholarly context and this historical context and sort of validated it for me. And then from there, I just went down the rabbit hole and began investigating what would become part of my whole life's work. So uncovering music that has been lost, underserved, or underrepresented is something that's really important to me, because there are gems that are going undiscovered all the time. And throughout history, some things rise to the top. And why did they do that? We don't necessarily know. Sometimes we do, but the things that fall through the cracks and don't get popularized, like Piazzolla, it's not for this lack of quality, it's just for a lack of opportunity. And because of my early introduction to Spanish language music, I've just always been inspired by the sounds of that Latin-based language. And I grew up in Southern California hearing Spanish all the time. It's a huge part of the culture here. And then I lived in Miami, and all of my colleagues speak Spanish. And it's just, to me, one of the most beautiful languages I can sing in. It just fits in my mouth, it fits in the zeitgeist, and the poetry is so carnal.
Los ríos de la mano es una de las últimas composiciones, la última década de composición de Guastavino. Los títulos de Los ríos de la mano suenan banales. Al principio uno no se puede imaginar qué poesía se puede escribir con respecto a una plancha, destornillador, una escuadra. Es increíble realmente, porque por un lado, así en la poesía, que es preciosa, se refiere a cosas muy cotidianas, y a través de lo cotidiano llega a una idea muy profunda. Y lo más increíble es que Guastavino, con ese talento increíble para transformar poesía en música, describe y apoya este sentido de la poesía para mí de una forma genial. Increíble.
Es, no sé, un intento magnífico de José Pedro primero de darle un valor emocional, incorporar al mundo emocional todas esas cuestiones que vos estás usando, y que hay, sobre todo al final, hay del texto de Plancha, mira, es tan bonita, cuando dice: dejó estampada a fuego su sombra protectora, está en la mesa grande donde se come y llora. Es decir, donde están las emociones, ahí está la plancha. A mí me parece, claro, muy logrado, y la idea me parece fantástica, ¿no? Un poco...
Sí, pero no, un pequeño, así, cuando hacemos plancha y uno lee el texto, mi abuela paterna era modista, y entonces justo, bueno, cuando era chico planchaba con plancha a carbón,
claro.
Y yo veo cuando hacemos la canción y yo me imagino la manito de mi abuela planchando, y el dedal, que es la segunda canción, con el que yo jugaba, metía el dedo, mi abuela tenía, cuando cosía, y son historias que a uno le llegan de forma muy emotiva y profunda.
Está hecha de un camino largo y de un camino corto. Pongamos mirar que ha florecido entre uno y otro. Por el camino largo yo voy de cielo a sol, el sol a plomo. Tú vienes a mi encuentro por el camino corto.
Let's talk about Pampiano that you're going to be playing.
Pampiano means piece from the Pampas. And I know that the Malambo is an important dance in Argentina, and that this piece is perhaps suggestive of the Malambo, especially in the fast parts. And Malambo is an athletic dance with fancy footwork. So that kind of virtuosity is evident in the outer sections of Pampiano. It's just a short piece, ABA form, and you'll hear virtuosic arpeggios at the beginning and the end. And the middle is my favorite part, though. That's the lyrical section. That's where Guastavino, the song composer, really comes through. Lush harmonies, just beautiful melodies. I guess the last thing I'd like to say is that I've never been to Argentina, but this music really speaks to me. I think that there's something universal about the expression and the harmonic language and the use of melody that would speak to anyone, anywhere.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Sonus relies on contributions of people like you to help make this festival and competition possible. Your contribution of any amount will help us continue in our mission to disseminate the music of these wonderful artists. Please visit our website, www.sonusinternationalmusicfestival.org, to make your tax-deductible contribution today. Thank you.
We invite you to join us tomorrow for Las Presencias.
Los invitamos a todos a que estén con nosotros mañana en Las Presencias.